Hey folks, welcome to Bike Chat. Tonight we're going to be spending some time with Josh Patterson from BikeRadar, learning about some of the cool things he saw at Sea Otter. Hey folks, this is Gene from Regular Guy Mountain Biking, where we talk about all kinds of cool and fun things that have to do with mountain biking, and of course home of the Regular Guy Mountain Biking Bike Chat show. In this episode, we'll be spending some time with our friend Josh Patterson from BikeRadar, who was lucky enough to attend Sea Otter and was kind enough to jump back on the show with Tony and I and tell us about some of the cool things that he got to see. So obviously Tony and I are pretty excited to get some secondhand love on what happened at Sea Otter. We would love to have been there, but the next best thing is having our friend Josh telling us about some of the cool things, and that's what we're going to do right now. So Josh, first of all, obviously Tony and I have to give you a big thanks because this is great. You know, regular guys don't get to go to some of these events all the time. So to have a friend that can kind of relay the info back to us is actually huge. So thanks, man. I really appreciate this.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Glad to be of help. And yeah, it was a great Sea Otter this year. Lots of new things, new products, and also like brand new exhibitors, new companies. So it kind of shows that there's definitely an uptick within the cycling industry.
Cool.
So it seems very vibrant this year.
Do me a favor, Josh. Not everyone knows even what Sea Otter technically is, because it's so many different things. If you've been watching any social media at all, there's information about the racing that's been going on there. There's information about vendor content. So just like the Cliff Note version, what would you like categorize Sea Otter? What is it actually? Right.
So Sea Otter, in a big sense, it's kind of like the season kickoff for the cycling industry.
Okay.
It's an expo. It's open to the public. So unlike other trade shows that are industry only, yeah, any average Joe can show up and check out the latest gear. But more than that, it's also a chance, for kind of racers to test their early season fitness. There's road racing, cyclocross racing out of season, and enduro, downhill, cross country. So it brings all of cycling together for one event.
That's cool. So obviously that's why everyone wants to get to this thing, because regardless of what area of cycling you're into, there'll be something there at Sea Otter that you can be interested in and probably want to learn more about. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So while you were there, what kind of cool things do you want to share over here to our folks? I mean, obviously there must be gazillions of awesome things that were going on there, but you had given us some really great insight on our last show. So I figured, let's see where we go with this time and run with it, man.
Right. So, this year there's the usual, this bike is newer, lighter, better. The incremental improvements from a lot of companies. But what stood out to me was new technology from, maybe small companies you don't necessarily hear about, that were kind of making some significant advances. One of those is, let's call it third-party electronic shifting.
Okay.
So Archer Components was one of the companies that was showing off a system. It's basically let's call it a bolt-on system for SRAM or Shimano. So you've got a wireless shifter paddle and then a motor that pulls cable to actuate your SRAM or Shimano rear derailleur.
Oh, yeah. You sent us some links to take a look at that, and
yeah.
I didn't actually look deep enough. I didn't realize how that worked. So it's a bolt-on. That's pretty cool. So you literally can use it with your existing system and go electric. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So I guess the analogy I would use is you think of like the One-Up Components, Wolf Tooth, the companies that make like add-on cogs, right? It's trying to take advantage of existing technology to make it better.
Right.
Well, this is kind of allowing people to possibly get into some sort of wireless electronic drivetrain, not only ahead of SRAM, who I'm sure at some point will have a wireless electronic drivetrain following in the footsteps of their ETAP for road, but it kind of lowers the barrier. We kind of saw the same thing with these kind of like hybrid systems in the early days of hydraulic disc brakes too, where companies kind of carved out this like intermediate niche. So it's following that same pattern. Does it work? I have no idea. I haven't tested it yet, but
Gotcha.
It's neat to see that companies are, finding these niches and innovating.
Well, what I like about this is that when we had our first show together, you had mentioned, because towards the end of it, we had, Tony and I kind of asked you, what's coming up? Can you give us an idea of what we're going to see? And you said you'll see more in the way of electronics, but you had also mentioned that it's still going to be a little bit, little money there to get into it if you want to play. But this, I don't know if it levels the playing field or not, because I have no idea what the cost is, but it's got to be cheaper than buying an entire system. I mean,
it's $350, right. I think.
What is it?
$350.
$350?
$350. Yeah, that's what was in the article. Well, on that though, you kind of sparked something, Josh. Do you think SRAM is kind of like, we were trying to, SRAM's like, oh, we're trying to do this whole system and get it out and everything like that. And then these guys come out of nowhere like, oh, look, you can use your existing stuff and you just bolt this thing on there. Do you think SRAM's kind of like, holy crap, do we kind of got to step this up now? Maybe do something like this? Or not really?
Companies that size have a kind of a schedule for these things, I've learned, and they'll probably stick to it. I'm sure it'll be a bit more refined as the Archer component system. I mean, you're basically, at least the prototype they showed off, Velcroing it to your chainstay.
Yeah, yeah, that's not too. Yeah.
Also, the levers do look like there's probably room for improvement. Again, this was a prototype. This wasn't their finished product. There's another company, I believe it's called Xshifter.
Okay.
That's also making a similar product. So, is that gonna push SRAM to bring out their, maybe it'll be called like ETAP mountain group sooner? I doubt it.
Well, okay. Let me. Obviously, you've got a couple things you want to run by us, but I do want to ask before we leave the topic over here is, why would you do it though? Like, I mean, like what's technically the benefit of going in this direction? Because you're kind of using a lot of, okay, the lever, who cares? I mean, like, it's a button. I mean, it's not like the other stuff is all that bad at all. I mean, they've made it so good now, so I don't feel the button really all that important. Are you really getting the true benefit of electronic shifting by, I mean, what's their play on this?
That's a very good question, actually. I think it's something to kind of excite early adopters.
Okay.
People that, if anything, it probably benefits SRAM because you're giving people a first glimpse of the possibilities of electronic shifting.
Gotcha.
I also think it might hurt Shimano because it gives you the benefits of electronic shifting wirelessly, which is something they officially just aren't behind yet. Right. At some point, they will have to get behind it, I think.
Because it does give you the. Oh, go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
Now, in the article, so from what I understand, it's faster, right? It shifts faster, correct? Than the normal like levers and stuff like that.
That's their claim, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And they say it's 100% repeatable shift. It said 100% repeatable shift points means you're in gear every time. What does that mean? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
They're claiming that because it's actually actuated essentially by a little computer, that your shifts should be cleaner as far as no miss shifts, and whatnot. Again, I don't want to put too much into that because we haven't tested it. Right. Certainly for some riders, there's a degree of ability to like program these things that could be very useful.
Right.
Like let's take Shimano's system, either XT or XTR Di2. You can make it shift quicker. You can make the paddles shift quicker, slower. You can change which paddle does what.
Okay.
And then if you're not sold on one by, if you're doing a 2-by system but only want one lever, you can make the computer essentially decide when it's time to shift the front derailleur.
That's cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to it than there is a lot more to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if this works, you'd probably see a lot of racers adopt this first because it's faster. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when Ferrari adopted the whole, we're getting rid of the stick and we're going to the paddle
shifters. Yeah, it's possible, especially if it ends up being lighter.
Well, and the other thing too is you got to figure if a racer is going to a lower gear, odds are they're probably climbing up a hill. There's a good chance if you go. So that means, okay, bike, we also need to tighten up the suspension because we want to make sure we make it. So it's not. It's allowing us now to move into a whole programmatic setting. You can set your bike for different areas of the race and then click, you know, mode 1, mode 2, presets, if you will, and boom, 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 and your bike just goes into these climb mode, acceleration mode. Well, I mean, look, here's the deal. One thing we have to say is that tools like this are what opens up the doors to thinking and get other things to happen. So whether this is going to be the end all or not, I have to definitely applaud them for doing something like this and bringing in more electronic functionality to shifting. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll see. You know, maybe it's a topic we could revisit in the future as it becomes a bit more refined and actually comes to market.
Yeah, that'd be cool.